Welcome back, gentlemen. How you going?
G'day, Leo. G'day, Wes.
Hey, how you guys?
Very well.
Very well, thanks.
Beautiful. And we're here today to discuss the part 2 of the Beatles re-release remixes, concentrating on 1967 to 70. Let's get into it, I guess. Martin, I will start with you again.
Well, as I said last time, the Beatles were just part of the air that I breathed when I was growing up from when I was a little kid. So I was born in 1960. So you can imagine, on the radio, on the television, you go to the supermarket, walk down the street, just Beatles here, there, and everywhere, no pun intended. But the first Beatles album I ever bought was a compilation.
I love that album.
Truly. You waited that long, Martin?
I was 45. So, it's like I had no need to buy it. When I was 6 or 7 years old, 7 years old, my mum took us to the cinema to see the Help movie. Of course, I couldn't make hide nor hair of what they were portraying on that film. It made no sense at all.
I had no idea either.
I can remember being at my grandparents' house with my uncles and aunts and other cousins, watching Magical Mystery Tour on the television on Boxing Day, and it's like, couldn't make hide nor hair of that one. The intriguing thing, reading what other people are saying about these the Beatles Red and Blue collections, and particularly the reissues with the extra material, is the CD versions or the streaming versions, where the additional material is flowed into the chronological order of the playlist. People who have spent their lives listening, and these Beatles compilations have been their gateway into owning and listening to the Beatles. There's just this cognitive dissonance when the song order isn't the same, and the song flow isn't the same with the additional songs. So I'm just intrigued by that. Interesting.
Amazing. Your initial thoughts, Wes?
A compilation is a compilation album. And I think this is stuff that came out in the 1970s, was it? And then was regurgitated again in 93, 2009 or something, These have just gone on, and finally there's some stuff that has been added. Yes, last time you said it was, Leo, you said it was a primer, and you've spoken about it being a gateway, Martin. And I think if you perceive that, then that's okay. I don't anticipate that people who own Rubber Soul or the Beatles, Abbey Road, Let It Be, necessarily are going to rush out and buy this, apart from the real fans, so to speak. But because there's so much on this, particularly on the Blue project, that's a repeat of what they already have. In other words, they've already got most of these remixes. Look, there are some things on here that really sparkle, and we'll talk about that in a moment, I guess. But there's really only 6 remixes that aren't available anywhere else. And some of those are really good, and some of those, well, like I Am the Walrus is, come on, I much prefer the Love version of that anyway, to even the original. The Love version has been really well put together, and this with all the junk, it hasn't even got all the King Lear stuff there at all, and never replaced it with other material. So I have no idea what Giles was thinking on that. But if as an introduction to the Beatles, yay, wonderful stuff, just great. Cool. And but as regards a great musical experience from what you already have, No, almost a waste of time, apart from those few pieces.
Cool. Well, that was the first. Martin spoke about the first Beatles album he ever bought. This was the first Beatles album I ever got, and it was shortly after its initial release.
Wow.
Probably early '74 I bought it. And yes, that was my first, wasn't my first introduction to the Beatles, of course, but it was the first album of the Beatles that I actually bought and loved it and still do. I have no criticisms about any stereo mixes at the time. They seem to be fine from '67 onwards. And I love the tracks that they actually put on. And of course, it was my gateway into their normal albums like Abbey Road and Sergeant Pepper's, etc. So from that perspective, I'm 100% happy with what they've done. Now for the new stuff, I think we should dig deep into this new version, a triple album on vinyl and about 9 extra tracks. Also on the CD version, of course, the CD has them in chronological order. The vinyl has added the extra tracks onto a new disc. Martin, what do you think? Any tracks that stand out or you've really enjoyed from this particular mix, if you like?
I'm kind of intrigued by the new songs that they've added in. So Within You, Without You, it to me is an album track. Dear Prudence, beautiful song. Blackbird, beautiful. Oh Darling, just a great performance. I Want You is an intriguing song. Now and then, as I had said last time, to me that's them peeking around the door saying, "Hey, remember us." I don't know if they would even think of it themselves as a powerful Beatles song in its own right, so much as just saying hello, come and have a look at what we've got at a treasure trove. But then you look at Glass Onion, Hey Bulldog, I Me Mine, and I don't know if they would be on anybody's A-list of favourite songs. But by the same token, recognizing that when you've got a collection of really powerful songs, sometimes you just need what I call palate cleansers. You just need something to have a quick swig and clean your mouth out before you get to the next important piece, transitional pieces maybe. So I don't think every song that they've added in has been a crowd pleaser particularly. I don't know. It's what are their reasons why? But as to songs that really leapt out at me as far as the general list, I'm just looking at, I've got a list of about 9 or 10 songs here that have really jumped out at me. When the Sergeant Pepper remix was done, what was that, 6 or 7 years ago? I remember being a little bit dismayed at A Day in the Life. I'm like, wow, I'm wanting this really immersive. I want the transcendent piece that I already know to be even more transcendent, and I didn't feel that it was. I felt it was more a curiosity. But having listened again this time out of the context of that whole album, it is transcendent plus. While My Guitar Gently Weeps has always been amazing. I love the harmonies of Hello Goodbye. I love Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane, 2 sides of a single when it was originally released, just masterworks. And I'm just loving just these mixes allow you to kind of stand and just be in this immersive experience that maybe I wasn't before. But remixes, 2023 remixes, Magical Mystery Tour, fantastic. And The Fool on the Hill in particular, it's so immersive. And those ocarinas and the fact that they're slightly off pitch, slightly out of tune, is part of the charm of it, really. And it reminds me back of a thought from the Red album and the remix of Yellow Submarine. It's like, couldn't they have auto-tuned Ringo's voice and kind of made it a little bit more in tune? And maybe it never occurred to me, growing up, you know, as a schoolyard sing-along, Yellow Submarine, we all live in the Yellow Submarine. Never occurred to me that Ringo was singing out of tune, but the remix kind of really foregrounded that. And yeah, Ringo, please tighten that up. But Fool on the Hill, just those ocarinas being a little bit flat, really works. It just really works. It's just so charming and whimsical. And, you know, what was the one I was listening to? One of these. Sorry, I've lost what it was. But yeah, it was A Day in the Life. And you're listening to the acoustic guitar, and without that crossfade from the previous song, hearing it in isolation, and you're just hearing John Lennon's acoustic guitar and just the upstrokes and the whimsical timing of it. It's like, man, the creativity of these guys, that they're within the Western pop music canon, but they're just playful and playing with what you would expect from a pop song. You know, just their genius is so apparent.
Wes, how about you?
The genius things about this collection is the versions of songs which are only on this collection. What I'm talking about is the clean starts to tunes like A Day in the Life and Dear Prudence. They don't appear anywhere else, because everywhere else the songs or the intros crossfade into the previous song. So that's makes this absolutely unique. It is good to see the single version of both Get Back and Let It Be being used here. But back to the uniqueness, though, there's another version of Penny Lane, which is often heard, and that's the piccolo trumpet version right at the tail. And I think there's an opportunity with these compilations to create something fresh and to put them together here for those who have already purchased all the other complete albums, as opposed to those who are just looking for an entree into this. I loved your comment, Martin, about Magical Mystery Tour and Fool on the Hill. I think that was just spot on. Revolution, depending on whether you've been listening to the mono or the single version, one of those is really harsh. The mono version is really harsh, but the stereo version is really nice, as so is this. I've got to tell you that back in the 1960s, I used to ring a mate of mine who was working at the ABC called John Seeley. And John had this half-hour pop music program. And he said, oh, you know, number one record is Hey Jude, how about we play that? And I said, well, yeah, I know you can chop it out about 4.5 minutes, like the Americans do. But, you know, why don't you just flip it over and play Revolution? Which he did. And twice he did this, twice. Whoever was producing the show pulled it midway through because there was too much distortion on the track. And I was like,
so he thought it was an internal problem at the broadcast centre.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they said, no, get that track off. So poor old John, it was like it had to be beautiful music even on the ABC, and that was too heavy. So this is pre-Double J. So we're talking about 67, 68. Some versions here that really sparkle, like back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, Strawberry Fields. I think, man, that's really good. There's so much going for it, but as long as you take it from the point of view that this is an introduction or this is the entree, then you're going to have a positive feeling. But if you're looking for something different because you've already purchased the rest of the remix albums, then it doesn't really help much.
Interesting.
Sorry. Hey, what's going on there? We're not supposed to be doing the Beatles.
Oh, good morning. Good morning's not there. It's not on there.
No. Well, there's a few things that are, which they could easily do a green or a yellow or a pink album. There's missing If I Fell, things we said today, I Followed the Sun, Rain, For No One, She's Leaving Home, I Will. One of my favorites, Savoy Truffle, Birthday, where was that? The radio, Maybe You're a Rich Man, and maybe a radio version of the Ballad of John and Yoko. Without the religious word.
I don't think he was meaning anything religious by it, or maybe he was.
No. They're just some things.
Yeah.
There you go. You got 3 more double albums coming.
Well, right. I think if Alan Klein had stayed on as Beatles manager, that may have happened.
Yes.
Maybe it would have happened, but this was right at the twilight of his season with the Beatles. He was on the edge of being ousted. So yeah, could have been more. Could have been.
Well, like we've had the rock and roll albums, we've had the love albums,
Beatles,
the
ballads, the movies,
yes, all of those.
All this in World War III.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and even that other travesty of Sergeant Pepper with the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton. Yes. There's some individual performances which are very nice.
Oh, well, Jeff Beck's instrumental on that was really good. That's all I can remember.
Yeah, but other than that, total rubbish.
Wes, you touched on I Am the Walrus earlier, and I've just do you know, being our resident classical composer here, or you've got the technical chops there. Do you know what a shepherd tone is?
No, tell me what a shepherd tone is.
Well, according to Google, this clever auditory illusion tricks your brain into thinking a sound is always rising or falling in pitch. A shepherd tone always seems like it is heading up or down towards a particular note, but really it's just an endless loop of sound that never reaches any kind of destination. Apparently, from what I've listened to other people, they're talking about I'm the Walrus at the end there. They were using that shepherd tone scenario at the end there, and they're complaining that Giles Martin has pushed up all the extraneous noises, if you like, to kind of stuff that illusion. And I thought you may have
to me, when it comes to listening to this, I'm listening it through radio eyes. How do I feel about an individual song? And I'm not particularly concerned about musical illusions or stuff like that. That's great. Good on the Beatles for experimenting with that, and all the engineers experimenting that perhaps more strongly in the mono mix than the latest stereo mix.
Yeah,
it's kind of, well, you've got to have some fun.
Fair enough.
Christopher Nolan famously used those tones in the audio track for the Dunkirk movie that he put out about 4 or 5 years ago. And I can remember the English Spitfire airplanes flying across the English Channel towards France, and you've got this rise to keep the tension going through the film, and it's like, and part of the publicity and the conversation about that was to do with those sounds. So, yeah, I wasn't aware of that on I'm the Walrus, Leo. So thanks for pointing that
it's
out.
just
I'll go
it's
and have
just
a listen. And,
yeah, sure. So
I did find out of all the remixes and all the versions on Blue that I'm the Walrus was the one that gave me that cognitive dissonance because of what they did towards the end
yeah,
with the mix there, and there are all kinds of things brought out that I'm not used to hearing.
yeah, that's right.
And of course, this is the beauty and the liability of projects like this, where you tamper with what people have taken to their bosom for decades, and you run the risk of drawing them closer or actually alienating, and not necessarily alienating with this one, but it's just like, oh, hello, what's going on here? Whereas with the others, they've actually brought me closer to, or refreshed my perception of what I think I've known really well. And it's like, oh, there are elements that are bringing greater depth to this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's always good to hear an alternate mix. And I think it's strong. It keeps you listening to what's there. And what I think often happens, maybe this is a shepherd's tone in the inverted commas sense of it, is that when we listen to it, it's our memory that we're listening to more often than not. And then,
Yeah.
you with me? And so
Yeah.
that when we listen to a remix, we have an opportunity here to listen through somebody else's perspective as to what was intended. And with Giles Martin pulling stuff up and, you know, lowering our levels and then putting stuff in left and the right channels, I just think that's wonderful.
Fresh. It makes it fresh
Yeah.
for us. You know, you think you know it, but there are depths that you don't know, and I'm thankful for that. I just see these two records as just an extraordinary labour, and obviously a labour of love as well. And obviously, it's getting paid well for the job. But it's like, how many songs over these 8 sides? You know, it's an extraordinary task. And thank you, Giles.
One of the wonderful ways of listening to this music is on earphones. And earphones really just brings the mix very, very close to home, as opposed to listening on speakers. Like when I listen on speakers, I sometimes feel that the overall bass, or Paul's bass, has been just pushed back a little bit at times. And whereas when I listen on earphones, I go, yeah, everything's in balance. And so I think your room that you're listening in has a lot to do with how you're going to perceive the music. And then the quality of the earbuds or the earphones that you're listening to is also going to have an impact on the way that you perceive it. And if you're streaming, well, keep in mind that you're not necessarily getting the full presence of what is there on either vinyl or on CD.
Yeah.
Yep, spot on. I've always been a fan of what Giles Martin has done since taking on the Sgt. Pepper project through the White Album, Abbey Road, and Let It Be, and also Revolver. And for those of you who are maybe 30 or under and you're wanting to get into the Beatles, this is not a bad way to start. It has a contemporary sound to it, and I'm sure that a lot of people will start with this and then just want to move into the deeper cuts, the albums themselves, and what a great presentation this is. So that's the difference that I have between listening to them in 73 and listening to them now. I have a greater appreciation of what they were doing then as a result of these remixes from when Giles got his hands on them. So
these songs really are the gift that keeps on giving.
yeah.
And to keep us in a state of wonder, it's like that to me is amazing.
Yep, cool. I need to go into the disappointments now. Wes, better start with Wes.
Yeah, well, the key disappointment is I Am the Walrus.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But I think we've already covered that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in terms of, again, it's who was this made for?
Yeah.
You know, if you bring it back to that, then you can just accept everything that's on it. But if you're thinking that this is another Beatle album as opposed to a compilation project, then you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And look, you know, maybe it was just an opportunity for Giles to indulge his own imagination, and you know, one song out of all of those, you know, I'll give him that.
Well, I'm really surprised at the way that the tracks segue and how there is very little sound difference between all of them. And that's an absolute skill of being able to take stuff which has been already remixed, then just tweak them, not necessarily with the, probably more to do with EQ than anything else, so that this sounds like a coherent project rather than a mishmash of multiple projects.
It's projects running over 8 years.
Yeah. So I think I'm assuming he did the mastering, or at least had some say over the mastering. So just a wonderful project from that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Well, I need to address what I would consider to be the elephant in the room.
We're talking about.
I'm talking about
now and then.
Correct.
Yeah, well.
So this highlights my disappointment. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What's it doing on there anyway?
That is my chief beef of the song. I don't have any issues with the song itself, really. They did a good job considering how it started off. But what's it doing there? This is 67 to 70, and this
plus
is
one,
there.
plus one,
plus one.
Yeah, like it's.
I don't know. It just doesn't fit to me. As far as I'm concerned, the definitive closing statement of the Beatles, as we were going through it as youngsters, was The Long and Winding Road. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the perfect song to finish things off.
And we're wandering off into the distance.
Yeah. And then they throw this in at the end, and I'm thinking, no, sorry, I don't buy it, even though I bought it.
But, a question, Leo, a question. If it was put at the front, would it have made a difference? If it was like, hello, everybody, here we are, get ready for the ride of your life.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I'm just one of these stupids that read 67 to 70 and then
okay, so
it's not there.
Well, let me.
They lied to us.
Yeah, well, I actually think the track is a travesty.
Okay.
So, in other words, yes, and it doesn't belong in there, and it does nothing to rekindle, in my opinion, the Beatle magic. Nothing at all. So, for me, I don't even see it as being part of the repertoire. At all.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the producer's idea of what the Beatles would sound like today. I give him credit for being able to make John and sound wonderful. I give him credit for being able to take out little snippets of Because and other tunes and sneak that in from George Harrison. I give him credit for being able to play on it.
A question. Is this the only Beatles song where Ringo is singing backing vocals?
Wouldn't think so, but I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, I'm not aware of him singing back.
Yeah.
It's not to say he didn't, but I'm hearing Ringo's backing vocals, and I'm like, hey, that's a late consolation prize, if that's the case. But
Yeah.
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 That little, and I'm not sure of the musical term for it. Is it a little compound time thing they do at the end with a it's like, okay, that's Beatles.
Yeah.
Where was that in the rest of the song? Just the last few
Yes.
seconds, suddenly there's this Beatles kind of imagination playing with your perception, playing with the timing, um, just playfulness in general. So where's that in the rest? The Beatles were always a combination of cynicism and playfulness. And there you go.
Like many who are watching this, I've just done a quick sneak on, what backing vocals did Ringo do?
Yeah.
And it's come that he's done some on Golden Slumbers Carry That Weight and Magical Mystery Tour.
Okay.
But
not necessarily foregrounded, and not
that's
necessarily.
right.
Oh, that's Ringo there.
Yeah. But for the most part, no, maybe it was because of the pitch issue that you spoke about earlier.
Well, I kind of wonder, Yellow Submarine, if that was, and I'm not saying he was great shakes as a singer. I'm not saying he's a terrible singer either.
In America,
But,
he was the #1 Beatle.
well, and recognizing Photograph and all those wonderful solo songs that he had in the wake of the breakup. But Yellow Submarine was really a schoolyard sing along, and so deliberately singing slightly flat may have been intentional, and in the context of the original mix, with all the other sounds around his voice, it all worked. I saw an interview with Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, and he was saying about how a producer was like, Billy, why can't you sing in pitch instead of singing sharp all the time? And Billy's like, oh, I can do that if you want. And the producer's like, well, why don't you? So he said, look, because it's boring. Let me do it. He went in and he sang and then sang the layered all parts. He goes, yeah, it's boring, isn't it? So he sings slightly sharp intentionally to create an effect. And so I wonder if that was part of Ringo's thing, or if it was one of those things where over time he's like, yeah, look, I'm going to go and get some coaching on this, and I'm going to get my voice into shape. And then by the time the band had ended, he was ready to be a frontman and in his own right. Questions questions you don't need answers to, really, just rhetorical questions. So.
Well, with regard to this Now and Then, there were 2 other singles that have been released subsequently
Which intriguingly are not included either.
Correct. So they were Real Love and
Free as a Bird.
Free as a Bird, correct, yeah. How's this for a stupid idea for a compilation? I reckon those 3 should have been included on another compilation. Wes has alluded to other compilations earlier.
Green, Yellow and Pink.
Yeah.
How's this? Pink album.
How's this for an idea to float? Those 3 singles at the end of a compilation. Songs by the solo Beatles that featured at least one other Beatle in them. In other words, collaborations from other Beatles on a Beatles solo project. How's that? And then throw these 3, given that these were virtual collaborations, really. Can you think of any? Like Ringo, for example, Ringo's Ringo album obviously had
George and John on it.
Yeah. And Paul actually wrote one of the songs as well. So there were collaborations there. I'm sure there were others, for example, the concert for Bangladesh. It's just an idea, but
Well, you know, you could extrapolate that into projects, not necessarily the same one, where they'd written songs for other artists, or they had produced other artists, or they had gone into. So I believe that George for a while toured with Delaney and Bonnie. You know, is there anything there where he collaborated writing-wise or recording-wise or produced
Island
something?
Lefebvre.
L'Angelo Misterioso,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but throw those 3 tracks on something else, not on.
It's
not
a
on
single. It's a single.
EP.
Yeah, it's
But do remix,
AI's
you know,
greatest hits.
please, Giles, remix those other 2.
Yeah.
Or not. No, I mean, they're not really essential in the canon, I don't think.
Yeah,
But
I see that.
There's an artist, Tom Odell, who recorded a version of Real Love, and he brings all of the melody and all the depth of the song out. And I'm like, where's that in the Beatles version? Surely the Beatles, of all people, are all about those factors and those qualities. But this Tom Odell song, which I came across from an English department store commercial, believe it or not. And it's like, oh, this is lovely. I had no idea the song was this lovely. And you go back and listen to the Beatles one, and it's strangled. Just you know. And respect to Jeff Lynne, but I don't think he was the right person to, you know, I love Jeff Lynne's work with other people, with the Wilburys, and his solo stuff's good, and ELO, of course. But with the Beatles, you know, he was too something, I don't know.
Yeah, so my synopsis of this is get rid of Now and Then, doesn't belong, and it turns out as a great album between 67 and 70 that people could readily get into and find their way through to the other Beatles albums as a result. And their legacy will go on pretty much forever, I'd say, as a result of these magnificent contemporary remixes.
Can you imagine some of this stuff? Well, one of my favorite Beatle things was hearing the Beatles tunes played on a koto.
Yeah,
Lovely, beautiful. And another one was a collection of stuff by a guitarist called Miloš from Montenegro, and just beautiful work. And then there's this compilation by, I'm going to use the word black because they're not necessarily all African-American, people doing Beatles songs. And that is absolutely beautiful to listen to.
Was it Booker T and the MGs did their own version of Abbey Road called Macklemore Avenue, in tribute to the street crossing outside their own recording studio?
Yeah, there you go.
So they did the whole Abbey Road album in their own style.
Wow. Have a lot of time for Booker T.
Never met him.
No, either have I. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for today, boys, and hopefully we'll be back shortly to do something else. We'll see.
Something else we can wax eloquent over.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed that today, guys. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks very much, boys. We'll catch up
Pleasure.
soon.
All right.